Good evening, Munyumba.
Good morning, Owen.
Yeah, welcome to S24's Money Watch, Munyumba. Now, from your interactions with the business community, what expectations have you picked up from the fraternity with regards to the upcoming budget presentation this Friday?
Okay, so there are a few expectations that they're looking at. One is debt restructuring and trying to unbundle the problems with the actual national debt itself, especially the external debt. Of course, I wouldn't hold your breath on that because the international capital community is not being friendly. Two is they're looking for the liberalization of the energy market in order to try and get a bit better energy policy to try and ease up the pressure on the energy market. Three, they're also looking to improve liquidity on the market by getting the government to delever as much as possible so that we can get a lot more capital flowing through the system. Mining policy, they're looking for investment in the mining policy. I said again, don't hold your breath because of the COP.
Right, Munyumba, are you there? Okay, we seem to have some issues with Munyumba. Munyumba, are you there?
Price.
Okay.
And finally, they're looking for increased domestic. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, import substitution was the final point that they're looking for.
Right. Now, Munyumba, there are limited sources of revenue for the government for next year's budget. The pandemic has literally contracted not just our economy, but the world's economy. So just where do you think the government will run to for funding its budget, or how do you think they will balance their sources of revenue without further hurting the pockets of its citizens and corporates by instructing the taxman to collect higher taxes?
Okay, so right now I'm going to have to speak like a horse race commentator at the moment because I've got 9 interventions for you that we can try and put through here.
Right.
And here you go. First one, I'm going to try and flood the market full of entrepreneurs. And the first thing you try and do is you try and give them a free trial license. How does Netflix get you to try and get more subscribers? They get people to have free trials. So I'm going to say knock off those business licensing fees for the first 2 years that people are going to be operating because you want to try and pack in as many entrepreneurs. Reduce the requirements and regulatory requirements of entrepreneurs so that people can actually get in down to the 5,000 kwacha startup budget means test. That's another way to get more entrepreneurs into the system. And finally, the same way Americans allow for 401k people to use their pension, their 401k contributions, I would allow young entrepreneurs or budding entrepreneurs to be able to lend at low interest rates with their NAPSA contributions as their collateral. That's the first intervention to try and increase the people in the actual system. Second thing I would do, I would actually increase the lending market space. Now we need 529 specific kind of tax advantage plans for household savings. So if you're a parent who wants to save for their children's education and you want to invest through the bond market, I'm going to give you something called a tax advantage plan so that you can invest your money in something that goes into the bond market, the government some cash, lowering the interest rates. And what that will do for the market also is that you as a parent can now deduct that from your pay as you earn payable tax base. The other thing I'm going to do as well is the same thing I was talking about when it comes to NAPSA plans. Just going back to the last point, I would say remove bottlenecks remove what I call bottlenecks from regulatory processes. The reason I'm saying this is if I'm an entrepreneur, the biggest problem I have is bottlenecks in my regulatory processes. So what I would say is things like if I'm going to test my product at Zambia Bureau of Standards, I want to remove the regulatory processes from the hands of Zambia Bureau of Standards to private. So let's say testing products, give those to private hospitals and let Zambia Bureau of Standards oversee the whole thing itself. That's one more thing I'll do. And finally, I would give you some energy market regulation. I can't leave you without giving you some energy market regulation changes.
Yeah.
Here's 3 things I would give for you for the energy market. 1, anybody who wants to switch to a gas stove or a gas geyser in their household, give them a tax rebate system so that you can have a switching cost incentive to ease the pressure on the energy market. Secondly, any landlord who switches their household geyser from an electric geyser to a gas geyser, take their withholding tax from 10%, from 16% to 10%. And finally, here's my biggest innovation of all. For all the women who are trying to host kitchen parties, you are the biggest culprits when it comes to bringing electric stoves into homes. If you give that bride a gas stove instead of an electric stove, 8% VAT for your whole kitchen party shopping. That's the way I would try and put some interventions. There are plenty more if you want.
Yeah.
Those are the 9 I'll throw on the table.
Yeah, Munyumba, I always like your commentary because it seems you are vying for president. Yet to hear you say anything else. But anyway, let's go to the last question, Munyumba. The last time we discussed the president's speech, your analysis stated that the government should consider introducing cooperatives. However, there was an argument that cooperatives have always existed and have worked well. Can you elaborate your point further on this? But before you do, there's a clip that I want us to play that supports your answer, Munyumba.
So we're really focused on capturing the opportunity in front of us. Consolidation often is an answer to a lack of growth, because then it becomes a cost game, and companies that cannot grow and don't have any growth opportunities get together and reduce their cost. But that is, I don't think one can shrink its way into greatness. That is not a positive thing. It's an admission of failure.
Because we touched on.
Yeah. Now, Munyumba, so elaborate further on why you think cooperatives can work and, to support your argument.
My problem with cooperatives is they're not growth engines. Right now, Zambia needs to establish itself as a pro-growth engine. And one of the things, the reason I gave you all those interventions before, actually was because you need to look at a growth engine. Now, Mr. Tsiam even said, the biggest problem that consolidation does is it's a cutting strategy, and it's an admission that personally I cannot push growth anymore. Growth in the sense of business comes from entrepreneurs who are fruitful. Fruitful means that they are trying to create, they're creative, in other words, they're innovative and they're industrious. And that comes from entrepreneurs being allowed to express their passion in the entrepreneurial sector without regulation. You see why I keep talking about deregulation, unleash the passion. Secondly, the other problem that you also have with cooperatives, like I said, is that they are supportive of an aid mentality. That's the problem. We don't talk about cooperatives for the sense of actually growing the economy. We talk about cooperatives, why we keep telling young people to start cooperatives, so that we can attract foreign aid, so that we can get begging into the country. Because we have what we call institutionalized begging in the country, and that's why we want foreign aid. And because foreign aid does not support small businesses, it supports cooperatives and poverty initiatives. Because, as I said, aid does not alleviate poverty. It makes poverty comfortable and sustainable. So cooperatives are what they want to use to try and invest in. Because in my years of economics, I'm yet to find somebody who can say that aid has cured poverty. Just final point here. The one thing that was mentioned in that was village banking. Village banking is different because you're trying to support inclusivity of the banking sector. You're not trying to support growth of the banking sector. You're trying to create a more inclusive banking sector because big banks have become toxic for the banking environment and for the economy. That's the reason why we bring in village banking. And I would excuse village banking from there, but it's not a growth engine. That's
right. Munyumba, thank you for coming through to S24's Money Watch. We hope to have you back soon.
Thank you very much.